Our next speaker is Deputy Jack Chambers.
Thanks, Cathaoirleach. I'm pleased to be able to speak on this issue today, and as the youngest deputy in the House, I will focus on the impact the Fempi legislation has had on young people, school and college leavers entering the civil service. The legislation was brought in 6 years ago now to curtail expenditure on public pay. Unfortunately, the measures were necessary at the time, and the economic recession illustrated that. An enormous credit is due to all public sector workers who had to swallow this very hard medicine. During this time, their workload will have increased due to the numbers who retired and the recruitment embargo in place, and yet the money they were taking home at the end of the month fell. We owe a huge debt of gratitude to all those who continued to work diligently and still do for the good of the country in the trying circumstances. The legislation has helped put us back on the right course, and now I am very grateful that Ireland in 2016 is a very different place to Ireland in 2009 when Fempi was introduced. This is why we are able to have this conversation today. As we have heard, Fianna Fáil supports the gradual unwinding of the Fempi legislation and a return to normal industrial relations mechanisms. I would love to be able to stand here and do what Deputy Coppinger says and bring the magic bullet response and just give public sector pay and restore it fully. But as Deputy Thomas Byrne has mentioned, we have to be responsible, and we have to target those low and middle income earners in the public sector who should have their pay restored. And if we were to remove Fempi today, those at the higher end of the pay scale would see their pay increase greatly. But such a move is not sustainable and would cost us in the region of €2 billion. The impact would instantly wipe out the available fiscal space at the expense of investment in frontline service. We are also in uncertain times following the Brexit referendum. Ultimately, people have worked too hard, sacrificed too much, and the country has come too far to jeopardise their economic recovery by performing such a reckless move. Instead, we need to have a sensible and realistic conversation where we set out exactly how we will go about unwinding Fempi in the fairest way. Fianna Fáil believes the setting up of a public pay commission is the best way to do this. This has been agreed in a minority government facilitation document. The question we must consider in this House is where we begin. It is my view that the negotiated dissolution of Fempi should be targeted first at low and middle income earners, and in particular ensuring that new entrants are treated fairly. A priority of this House must be to make a career in the public sector an enticing and exciting option for our youngest and brightest to consider as they complete their education. At the moment, Count Corla, this is not the case. For most young people, the idea of the public sector does not enter their thought process at this stage at post-school or college. And why should they, when they see how poorly they will be treated in the two-tier sector that has been allowed to develop? A week hasn't gone by since I was elected that a young teacher, guard or nurse contacts me relating to their situation. These bright, talented, ambitious young people are struggling to survive because of the poor paying conditions of their work. Take teachers, for example. Those who entered the profession after 2010 are on significantly lower pay scales than their colleagues, even though they have precisely the same responsibilities. It means that over a 40-year career, new teachers will earn some €250,000 less than the colleagues they are working beside. Many new teachers are now thinking long and hard if it's all worth it. There is no shortage of first-hand accounts of young people in the industry struggling to meet the cost of rent, food, transport or keep a car on the road. Thoughts of mortgages or paying off a loan are but a pipe dream for many, and we've seen how Gardaí have had the same situation. The starting salary of €23,000 is an insult and a pathetic remuneration for the men and women who are putting their lives on the line to keep us safe. The commitment and dedication required in this regard is not easily found. These people's talents should be nurtured and honed. A €23,000 salary does not do this and will never do this. With the ongoing criminal feuds gripping many parts of this city, the need to develop on Garda Síochána is more important than ever. The government wants to expand the force to 15,000. This won't happen if we don't provide a proper salary. The situation is the exact same for nurses and all the young people on the front line trying to deliver services in the most difficult of scenarios. Changes to the legislation should start here, and with the low earners who bore the brunt of the pain. It is time they were rewarded. Thank you, Deputy Chambers. Deputy Louis.